I'm sorry I wore my work uniform, the nurse said on a blind date. Then the single dad's reactio. Sarah's hands were trembling as she straightened, her blue scrubs in the parking lot mirror. She had come straight from the hospital. No time to go home. No time to change, no time to even fix her hair properly. Her shift had run 3 hours overtime. And now here she was, standing outside a cozy downtown cafe, about to meet a complete stranger for a blind date. He's going to take one look at me and leave, she whispered to herself. She had been on exactly 0 dates in the past 2 years. Not since the accident. Not since everything fell apart. Her best friend Melissa had practically begged her to try this. Just one date. Sarah, just one. You deserve happiness again. So here she was, in her scrubs, smelling faintly of antiseptic and coffee, hair thrown into a messy bun. Not exactly the first impression she had imagined giving. She pushed open the cafe door. The warm amber lighting washed over her as she stepped inside. The smell of fresh coffee and baked bread filled the air. Around her, couples laughed softly. Friends leaned over tables sharing stories, and the gentle hum of evening conversation wrapped around everything like a blanket. And then she saw him. He was sitting by the window exactly where Melissa said he would be. Around 36, maybe 37, a gray button-down shirt, slightly rolled at the sleeves. Dark hair, a little messy in an effortless way, a short beard that somehow made him look both tired and kind at the same time. He was staring at his coffee cup, turning it slowly in his hands, like a man carrying a thought he couldn't quite put down. His name was Ryan. Sarah took one long breath and walked toward him. "Hi. I'm Sarah," she said, her voice smaller than she intended. Ryan looked up. His eyes, warm brown, quietly observant, moved from her face to her scrubs and back again. 1 second, 2 seconds. Sarah felt her stomach drop. Here it comes, she thought. The polite smile, the excuse, the "oh, something came up" speech. But Ryan did something she didn't expect. He stood up, and he pulled out the chair across from him. "Please, sit down," he said. His voice was calm, genuine, not a trace of judgment in it. Sarah sat, completely caught off guard. "I'm so sorry," she said quickly, smoothing her scrubs self-consciously. "I came straight from work. My shift ran late. There was a patient, and I didn't want to cancel on you, but I completely understand if this isn't what you expected. I can go home and—" "Sarah," Ryan said gently, interrupting her. She stopped. "You just came from saving someone's life," he said simply. "There is nothing to apologize for." She stared at him. He wasn't saying it to be charming. He wasn't performing kindness. He meant it. She could tell. The way you can tell the difference between a person who says the right thing and a person who feels the right thing. "How do you know I was saving someone's life?" she asked softly. He smiled, small, a little sad around the edges. "Because Melissa told me you're an ICU nurse, and because you have that look." "What look?" "The look of someone who just fought really hard for another person," he said. "My late wife had that look sometimes. She was a paramedic." The word "late" landed softly between them, like a leaf falling on still water. "I'm sorry," Sarah said, and she meant it completely. Ryan nodded slowly. "Thank you." For a moment neither of them spoke. The cafe moved quietly around them. A barista called out an order. Someone laughed across the room. Then Ryan said, "Can I tell you something honest?" "Please," Sarah said. "I almost didn't come tonight," he admitted, wrapping both hands around his coffee mug. "My daughter, and she's 7. She had a nightmare last night and didn't sleep well. By this morning I had convinced myself that I wasn't ready, that it was too soon, that I was being selfish even trying." Sarah leaned forward slightly. "What changed your mind?" He looked at her with those quiet, steady eyes. "She told me to go," he said. "My 7-year-old. She said, 'Daddy, Mommy would want you to be happy.'" Sarah felt something shift in her chest. A door she had kept locked for 2 years. Not quite opening, but moving. "She sounds remarkable," Sarah said. "She's the best thing in my world," Ryan said without hesitation. They ordered coffee, then food. The conversation moved slowly at first, careful, honest, a little careful again. But somewhere between the second cup of coffee and a shared slice of lemon cake neither of them had planned to order, something changed. Sarah told him about the patient she had stayed late for, an elderly man, 74 years old, who had coded twice on her shift. She had stayed because she refused to let him face those moments with only machines around him. She had held his hand. She had talked to him through procedures he couldn't fully respond to. Did he make it? Ryan asked. He did, she said, and her eyes lit up in a way she didn't even notice. Ryan noticed. He told her about the year after his wife passed, about learning to braid his daughter Emma's hair from YouTube tutorials at midnight, about burning dinners and eventually learning to cook real meals, about reading the same bedtime story 47 nights in a row because Emma needed the comfort of sameness. What's the story? Sarah asked. He laughed, a real laugh, full and unguarded. The Velveteen Rabbit. Sarah felt her throat tighten unexpectedly. That's a story about becoming real through being truly loved, she said quietly. Ryan looked at her for a long moment. Yeah, he said softly, it is. 2 hours passed like 20 minutes. When Sarah finally looked at her watch, she blinked in disbelief. The cafe had emptied around them without either of them noticing. The baristas were wiping down tables nearby, clearly preparing to close. I kept you, Sarah said, suddenly embarrassed. You didn't keep me anywhere I didn't want to be, Ryan said. They stood outside on the sidewalk. The night air was cool and clean. A few cars drifted past. The city hummed its quiet nighttime hum. I need to say something, Sarah said, hugging herself slightly against the chill. Okay, Ryan said. I almost didn't come tonight either, she admitted. 2 years ago I lost someone too. Not a spouse, my fiancé, a car accident, and I've spent 2 years convincing myself that the work was enough. That being there for other people was enough. That I didn't need, she paused. That I didn't deserve to need anything for myself. Ryan was quiet for a moment. Then he said, You do though. Simple, certain, no performance. Sarah looked at him. So do you, she said. He walked her to her car. Before she got in, she turned around. I'm glad Melissa made me come, she said. I'm glad Emma made me come, he said. They both smiled, the kind of smile that lives somewhere between relief and something new and unnamed and hopeful. Same time next week? Ryan asked. And you can come in whatever you're wearing. Scrubs, lab coat, hazmat suit, I don't care. Sarah laughed, a real laugh, the kind she hadn't heard from herself in a long time. Next week, she agreed. 6 months later, Emma was sitting at the kitchen table doing her homework when Sarah came through the front door, still in her scrubs, carrying takeout containers. Sarah! Emma jumped up, her braids flying. Sarah set down the food just in time to catch her in a hug. Ryan appeared from the kitchen doorway, a dish towel over his shoulder, watching the two of them with an expression he couldn't fully hide. Quiet, full, like a man who had stopped being afraid of good things happening. You're in your uniform again, Emma said cheerfully, patting Sarah's scrubs. I am, Sarah said, smiling at Ryan over Emma's head. That's okay, Emma said matter-of-factly, climbing back onto her chair. It means you were helping people. Ryan crossed the room and handed Sarah a coffee mug, already made. Exactly how she liked it. Their fingers touched briefly on the handle. Welcome home, he said quietly. And Sarah, who had spent 2 years believing she had used up her share of good things, felt something she had almost forgotten was possible. She felt like she was exactly where she was supposed to be.